Well, thanks again, everybody. I'm Leslie Burkus, the Executive Director of the Urban and Community Forestry Society. And we are here for our monthly learning series. And we so thank our sponsor of this, our exclusive sponsor of the monthly learning series, Bartlett Tree Experts. Together with Bartlett, we share the goal of raising the bar for urban forestry. And Bartlett is a partner with us, for consulting services, as well as, of course, research and science. So we thank them for their support. And overall, we thank all of our sponsors of the Urban and Community Forestry Society for the work they do to help us provide webinars like this and all the work we do. And most of all, though, we thank you, the members. Members are who make this possible. An association grows and its impact grows as its membership grows. So if you are a member of the society, your work is helping make urban foresters across the globe stronger, and it's helping make our voice stronger. This is a profession, just like doctors, nurses, lawyers, engineers have a professional society. You as tree people get to have one as well, and that's what UCFS is here to serve for. So if you're not a member, we really hope you'll join us. And again, thanks to our members who are here today. So quickly, we're in our introductions right now, and then we'll hear from our awesome panel. I'm going to introduce each of them at the end here, but they're going to talk about how to integrate youth and urban forestry planning into education and program delivery within your communities, or how they're doing it, and hopefully learn those lessons for your own town. How various types of youth engagement can strengthen that community engagement and your canopy goals. And then some specific examples, hopefully things that you maybe are already trying and could take tips and tricks back to your community, but also maybe something new that you might hadn't thought of and how you can incorporate that into your urban forestry work. At the end, we'll have time for some Q&A. And then at the end of this presentation or the panel, we will have your CEU form, and I'll drop that in the chat when we're ready. So as we get started, please drop your name and where you're from in the chat. So it's great to see everyone joining from often across the globe. So let's hear where you're from. We have been getting some feedback that the chat's not working for some people, and I think that could be some network settings on work computers. If that's the case, we have heard that if you leave and come back, that might help trigger chat to work, but hopefully chat is working for you as we go through this. This webinar is being recorded, so we'll send it out afterwards and we'll post it to our YouTube channel. Again, CEU form will be submitted on your behalf, and we'll put that in the link in the chat at the end of this. And you are on mute, but if you have questions, please put those in the chat as we go along, and I'll ask those of our panelists. You can utilize the Q&A feature at the top of the Teams platform, or you can raise your hand. We'll bring you off mute at the end. So, if you are not familiar with the Urban and Community Forestry Society, here's our job. Our job is to build the confidence, competence, and camaraderie of all professionals who manage trees and forests to create and sustain more livable communities. Breaking that down, what we really mean by that is we want to be the professional membership home for the people who make or support a daily tree care decision. If you decide who, what, where, when, why, or how a tree decision is made, tree goes in the ground, tree comes out of the ground, people, who's engaged with those trees, what's going to happen to the tree community within your town, that is what our job is here. We want to make you more confident in those decisions, connect you with others around the community, and really lift your voices up. I said that at the top. That is the power of association. You are one person, maybe a one of many within your community, and it might feel kind of lonely sometimes, but our job is to help lift your voice up and make sure everyone knows the important work that you're doing. To do that, to help support you and help get the word out about the work you do, we provide a number of services and things for our members and friends. City Trees, I saw a comment on LinkedIn that someone called this the Rolling Stones of urban forestry, the Rolling Stone magazine of urban forestry. And I thought that was the best compliment ever. So if you're not familiar with City Trees, definitely check it out. Not only is it information for yourself, I think it's great to share with maybe your leadership team. If you're in a department, maybe you're in public works and your public works director is like not really that into trees, maybe it's a great resource to share with them so they understand the real hard work that you're doing every single day. We have an arborist exchange program, mentorship program. Our Municipal Forestry Institute is coming up next February and will be held the last February of every year. We are going to be launching our accreditation program here late this year. So we will have much more details about how you can go through accreditation for your city and get that stamp of approval to show that you really are a shining star in urban forestry. That will be coming out soon. And of course, our monthly learning series here. And I'm going to specifically call out in 2.5 short weeks, our conference will be held in Henderson, Nevada, along with our friends at Arbor Day Foundation. So if you're not, some people sign up for Partners Conference and also add on our conference, which is on Tuesday. So really hope that you've signed up. There's still time. I believe today is the last day to add on the Partners Conference before the price increase. So if you're not signed up, I'll put a link in the chat here and get you all signed up for that, hopefully, and see you in Henderson, Nevada. At the end of this, I'm going to put a number of links in the chat, including to our events, again, to the conference, and a few other things that UCFS offers. So finally, if you're not a member, we really, really hope that you'll join us. We're doing big work here. We're connecting you with partners from across the globe, and you should really be with your tree people. So if you're not a member, join when you can. Hope the time is right soon. And if you are a member, of course, thank you so much for everything you do to help support us and to join with this community. So with that, I am going to kick it over to our panel. We are going to start with Emma Stammer, who is the program director for the Treasure Valley Canopy Network in Boise, Idaho. And then after that, we'll hear from Keith O'Haron, the urban forester for Union County, North Carolina. Amelia DeVivo from the Environmental Program Coordinator with the City of Austin, Texas, will present with Ashley Pettis, the Conservation Program Coordinator from Austin, Texas. And I'll let them do any other specific introduction they would like to do. But with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to kick it over to you, Emma.
Perfect. Now it's my turn to share. Let's see if
Yes.
I can get it. Awesome. Well, thanks for the introduction. All right. Can you see that?
It looks like it's coming up on my end. Yes, I
working.
see full screen,
Cool.
ready to go.
All right. So you're going to see a kid measuring a tree, right?
Yes, there he is.
Awesome. Yeah, so my name is Emma, and I work with the nonprofit called the Treasure Valley Canopy Network. We're a nonprofit based here in Boise, and we work to grow, care, and educate our community about urban trees. And for reference, the Treasure Valley is kind of the Boise metro area in Southwest Idaho. And I'm going to be talking about TreeQuest, which is our super cool student-led tree inventory project. And this is a project that is a partnership between the Boise School District and Treasure Valley Canopy Network. So before I get into the nitty-gritty of tree inventory and youth, I'm going to rewind a little bit and give you an understanding of how we got here. So for years and years, these three partners have all kind of worked adjacent to each other. We haven't had a project solely focused on trees before, and so it's been needed, right? And these folks here came together, the Boise School District, the City of Boise, and Canopy Network, to focus on trees. And really what prompted that was a citywide canopy assessment happened, and we realized all of our planting opportunity really fell on private property. And private property includes the school district as well. There's a lot of open space, a lot of opportunity for trees. So we wanted to really engage everyone that was involved with trees. And so at the Boise School District, we worked really closely with the sustainability supervisor, Allie Ward, who's been awesome to work with. We brought in the facilities team. You know, they're the ones working with trees every day. And then at the City of Boise, we work closely with Community Forestry, Parks and Recreation, and the Climate Action Division. And then, of course, us as the nonprofit partner. So in our meeting, we talked about all things trees. It was kind of a brainstorming opportunity and really just looking for opportunity to increase our tree canopy on school properties. And I'm sure as many of you have worked with before, when you come in to talk about let's plant more trees, there's that what if, you know, how do we care for those trees? Who's going to care for those trees? Where are they coming from? And so a lot of our conversation was around, you know, concern around irrigation. We're in a high desert environment here in Boise, and that means trees need to be watered for their entire lifespan. We're not just watering them for the first few summers. There's a lot of planning that needs to happen with those. Another thing from the Boise School District side, they don't have an arborist on staff. Big projects have to be contracted out, which gets pretty pricey, as we all know. And there's no tracking of school district trees. We don't know how many trees there are. We don't know how much opportunity there is for trees. We don't know the status of a lot of trees. So that kind of left a lot of opportunity for us to work together and make some shared goals. Perfect. So our shared goals that we left these brainstorming sessions with included engaging administrative and facility staff at individual schools. And if you work with schools, you know that principals, teachers, the janitors are the people that are really making the decisions on individual school locations. And so if you have the buy-in from them, you're way more likely to have a successful program, opportunity, that kind of thing. The next was taking an inventory of all school district trees. So let's figure out what we have at hand, what we can do with them, where there's opportunity to grow, and with that, creating a resource and plan for current and future trees on district property. And then why we're here today talking, we were like, how do we engage and educate students? This is a huge opportunity for climate action on the school level, environmental education right in their backyard. How do we engage students and bring them into the urban forestry world? So from all of that, TreeQuest was born, and we had to come up with a fun name because, you know, kids in schools. So TreeQuest it was. We even got a snazzy little logo that you can check out in the corner there. And we were like, what are we going to do with TreeQuest? What are our goals here? How do we engage students in a meaningful way, but still reach our tree goals? So we developed our goal is to develop an inventory of all tree locations and their condition on each school district property. Engage students in each school's green team, which is a team that focuses on their community gardens, volunteering and environmental type work, and engage them in urban forestry this time, in education and hands-on climate action on their campus. And then third, we wanted to develop a plan for new tree plantings, removals as needed, maintenance, and replacements. And so really, with these goals, our attempt was to make this school specific, not district-wide. So schools could opt in and reach these goals at their own pace, rather than us coming in and saying this needs to happen by this date. So it's really flexible for different ages, schools, and priorities. So we had to figure out how to train everybody. So in 2024, we officially launched TreeQuest, and we opened it up to any school district staff. So principals, teachers, support staff, green team leads, technical staff. There's a lot of staff at non-student facilities that were interested in well. So that was really great to see. And we hosted a good old PowerPoint training and got everyone in one room, and we talked about all things trees. And so a lot of folks had no experience with trees, tree ID, all that stuff. So we really kept it basic as much as we could, with the goal that the teachers and principals, all those staff would bring that back to their individual schools and launch that program themselves. So we covered basic tree ID, tree inventory 101, an intro into Planet Geo's tree plotter. So a lot of techie stuff going on. And then we went into the field and did some testing. The tools, just like I said with the training, we tried to keep it really basic to make it accessible and easy for schools to opt in if they wanted to. So of course, a diameter tape, lots of cell phones and tablets, using that in the field, and Google Lens. When you're not great at tree ID, that is the way to go. And we also did the old school thing and printed out our tree inventory sheets. So if technology wasn't working, we had some different options, or if technology is not allowed in certain schools. And once everyone was up to speed, we hit the field really quickly. Launching this in 2024, we had a lot of schools pick it up and get going. So kids went out, teachers really bought into it. It was great. And we were also lucky enough to have an intern from Boise State University to help manage this, and then also an AmeriCorps member from the 4-H system here in Boise, who was actually working with our green teams already, working on community gardens. So it was a perfect fit. And we had two really great individuals that connected with teachers, were tech support, learned all things tree ID, and let teachers really build it into their curriculum as they wanted to, or even it was an after-school project on some schools with the green teams. So there was a lot of flexibility in there to adapt for different ages in schools. So the cost associated with it, I know that's a big question. We're actually really lucky. The Idaho Department of Lands provides a subscription for Tree Plotter, and so that's at no cost for us to use. Municipalities are able to use it for free, and school districts. So we're really glad that that's an opportunity that we're able to take advantage of. The AmeriCorps member that I had mentioned, that was provided by the Boise School District, so that it was at a pretty minimal cost. And then the only material we really had to purchase for the schools were diameter tapes for the trees. And I hope you appreciate the pictures of kids hugging trees throughout this. So some challenges and learning opportunities in our first year. As with any technology and logins and passwords, there's always issues. So we adapted throughout the year. We ended up using one login for everyone just to have the same password. And we just double checked what was being entered in there to make sure things didn't get too messy. And then also reverting to those paper data collection sheets. For certain classes, that worked better anyways. And so we just keep that as an option for different classes. We had some inaccurate tree locations. If you use Tree Plotter on your phone, you'll probably know that it is hard to pinpoint that tree in the right spot sometimes. So what we have actually moved towards is staff and volunteers are pre-plotting tree points on a desktop or laptop computer ahead of time. So when the students are out there collecting data, they can just click on that white dot and add in their info. And then for some schools, devices are a little tricky. Sometimes cell phones aren't allowed or kids are too young to have cell phones. So our solution there, the Canopy Network has been able to actually purchase a set of iPads for schools to check out as needed. And that's been a great resource. And we were able to use Forest Service grant funding to provide those. So we've reached 1 year officially of TreeQuest. We actually have 2 schools that are launching today. So we're up to 19 schools that have either completed a tree inventory or in process. And with that, over 700 students have been engaged, which is a lot when there has not been established urban forestry curriculum before. We're really introducing students to this is a career field, which is really great. Some outside impacts of TreeQuest without directly impacting the tree inventory on campuses. We've been able to connect a lot more with both schools and our statewide Project Learning Tree branch, along with the Idaho Forest Products Commission. And this has really helped us build some urban forestry curriculum that can go to classrooms. Traditionally, there's been a lot of traditional forestry education provided in Idaho, especially as a career field. And so being able to use urban forestry as a perfect example of a different career field and bring in arborists into classrooms, or this year, the environmental field experiences, which is a week that 6th graders get to go out and experience environmental science. This year, they focused a whole week on urban forestry. So seeing this increase across Boise from this one little project has been really awesome to see. We've got kids out that recognize trees because they did an inventory on their class. Has been awesome. And like I mentioned, we had an intern from Boise State University, and she actually did some research about the impact of TreeQuest on its own and environmental science with students. And she did a quiz here of how interested are you in learning more about environmental science post being active in TreeQuest, and the majority says interested. So that feels great to see too. So looking forward, we've done a lot within a year, but we have a lot more to do. So the school district, we want to complete all the inventories at schools and district buildings. So we're headed in that direction and we're going to keep moving forward. Another goal for the Boise School District in particular is the Arbor Day Foundation's Tree Campus K-12 certification. And an inventory is like the first step in that process. So we're supporting that goal and hope to see that soon. And then for the Canopy Network, we want to just keep this program. We want to open it up and provide these resources and support statewide and see this occur at other school districts across the state of Idaho. Just a quick thank you to all of our partners again. And thank you guys. You can learn more about this at the on our website, tvcanopy.net, or you can shoot me an email and we'll have some Q&A at the end. And I'll stop sharing and cool. And I'm going to hand it off next to Keith. He's the urban forester for Union County, North Carolina, and he's going to be sharing about a school-based nursery.
All right, let me share my screen. Okay, is that sharing?
Yes.
Great. So I'm going to talk about a tree nursery that we are operating at a middle school in partnership with their agriculture teacher. So this is 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students at a middle school called Parkwood here in Union County, which is a suburban, exurban, rural area right outside of Charlotte. And it's been 3 years now. We've developed this tree nursery. Well, why would we do this? So first of all, urban forestry is a profession. To build an intentional recruitment pipeline means that you need to introduce youth to nature, but also the idea of nature as a career. And these agriculture teachers already do that. So it was easy to kind of slide into existing curriculum that they do around farming and producing and livestock. They already had some forestry curriculum, traditional forestry involved as well, timber production, fiber extraction. But so this was adding on arboriculture and urban forestry. It provides hands-on experience right there on their campus, like a 60-second walk out their back door on their own campus. So no school buses required, no field trip required. So very easy, low-hanging fruit. Provides an opportunity for these kids to engage in their own community by selling trees to the public and also planting trees on their campuses, their campus, other school campuses, and we're looking at cross-pollination as well, planting at a community college, planting at city parks, and so on. And then also another goal is just to create product, just to create a source of high quality tree material. Because we have 53 campuses serving 40,000 students, we're like the second or third largest school district in the state of North Carolina. So we just have a lot of property. Most of these schools have been built in the last 20 years. They all had the topsoil scraped and graded. They all have poor quality soil, and when they build the schools, they do not plant trees. So they're all basically totally denuded, starting from scratch. So worst case scenario for tree canopy on these schools. And then we have 250,000 people in the county, and this kind of new construction is occurring there as well. And again, just a lack of trees. We wanted to frame this in the Tree Campus K through 12 as kind of a framework for this partnership. Honestly, I've had trouble getting schools to sign on to this. I really try and sell it and all the benefits of it, and sometimes they see it as just another box to check or a barrier, and sometimes they would rather just do the thing and get the benefits without the recognition, because even though it is very easy to do this, they see it as another task. And so I've actually had trouble getting them to adopt the Tree Campus K through 12 framework. So all these areas are things that we stress in the teaching about it. A little bit of classroom teaching does occur. That's another area that I've had trouble getting into the classroom itself, because they're already like over scheduled, overbooked. They're just very busy. And we also had all these big ideas about field trips and guest speakers. And a lot of this also has not materialized. Um, so to be totally transparent, what has materialized and that they love is the nursery itself. And so again, this is right outside their classroom. We picked an area that was part sun, part shade, relatively flat with a decent drainage, a decent slope. We had facilities, the public school district's facility staff build it. They leveled it out with a bobcat. We put down stone, and then the weed barrier fabric is actually on top of the stone. Before we even built the nursery, we actually potted up seedlings. So I buy seedlings from the state of North Carolina. They're like 33 cents a piece, all native species of mostly shade trees because they're grown for traditional forestry. They're not really grown for arboriculture and urban forestry. So it's kind of all timber species. So the overlap there is limited. We potted them up before the nursery was ever built. So in this photo, the nursery is going to end up here on the right side. So we're putting things on the left in anticipation of that. So this is about 4 months in. Things are growing pretty well. These are fabric grow bags with kind of standard potting soil that we get a really good price on. So here the nursery's actually been built. We're using the pots to hold down the fabric before we put in the pins, landscaping pins to hold that down, being blown around in the wind. The total was 6,000 square feet. So it's a pretty big nursery. We're going to be able to hold eventually almost up to like 1,500 units in here. So this is as we're installing the irrigation. Here the irrigation panel has been installed. So this is a battery controller with 4 different zones is what you're looking at here. These are the solenoid controlled gate valves with a filter. And they're all on drip tape. So these are the main lines, and then the drip tape is going to come off of these down each row. Again, this is the second year we're putting seedlings in pots. So in this photo on the right side of the screen, these are 1 year old, and then on the left side, these are brand new, the day that we potted them up. This is about 18 months. So these on the right side are 18 months old. These are about 6 months. This is 2.5 years. So we're starting to get some size in these units on the right that are now about 2 years old. We're not fertilizing as much as I would like. This is most recent, August 2025. So these units that are now 2.5 years old are approaching 5 or 6 feet tall. So they're now big enough to either sell to the public or to plant on a playground with some expectation of being vandalism proof. So just in the last 2 weeks, the FFA club did join a Master Gardener's plant sale, and they did sell off some trees. So again, they're getting experience putting things in pots, growing them from 6th graders, 7th graders, and then when they're 8th graders, they get the experience of selling them off or planting them. And we have used these at planting events. So these are their trees being planted at a school playground, in elementary school. So these elementary school students got to plant the trees with their family. So how do we get into schools to do this? You know, this is a bigger ask than an Arbor Day 1-day planting event. So you have to work with the willing. I have 53 campuses. Some of them don't want trees. Some of them don't have room. I don't have time to fight with people over that. There's plenty of teachers and principals who are interested and do want to do this with me. I definitely lean on the Arbor Day Foundation and that name recognition, that idea of tree planting in schools. You really have to work around their schedule, their class schedules, their vacations, standardized testing. You have to work around that. You have to understand facilities, that they are basically chronically understaffed and underfunded and always under a lot of pressure to keep these facilities running. Facilities themselves, their focus is on trades, HVAC, plumbing, carpenters, the electricians, janitorial, custodial. They don't want new responsibilities. Grounds, keeping to them is kind of a nuisance task. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the way it is. It's rarely the priority. Aside from athletic fields, they, at least where I am here, they don't really care what the school looks like. It's about function. It's about keeping the school running. So then how do you get into schools? Well, the principal, Emma spoke to this, the principal is the captain of the ship. So if you get the principal to sign off, facilities has to make it happen if it's a reasonable request. So I wouldn't start by approaching facilities. I would start by approaching teachers, and especially principals or assistant principals really are the decision makers, just like Emma said. You need to make it about a learning experience, and you need to reduce the size of the new task that you are dropping on facilities or teachers or students. And to do that, you need to make a long-term plan for the responsibility of maintenance. That goes for both the nursery itself, but also planting trees on campus in Arbor Day events. So that's my experience thus far with a school nursery at a middle school. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Amelia DeVivo and Ashley Pettis at the City of Austin. And I stopped sharing.
Awesome, Keith. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead now and get my screen queued up. Go back in time just briefly. Sorry, is that stuck on that slide?
If it looks like it.
Yeah, let me go ahead and I'll stop sharing just momentarily. And then that way, we'll see if we can get that initial slide on up. Thanks for bearing with us. Okay. There we go. Does that come through for y'all?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us here today. We're coming in from sunny Austin, Texas. As Keith said, I'm Amelia DeVivo. I'm an environmental program coordinator with the City of Austin. And with me is Ashley. I'll let her introduce herself.
Yeah, hey y'all, Ashley Pettis, Conservation Program Coordinator at City of Austin. Thanks.
Awesome. And so yeah, we're here to tell you guys a little bit about the Youth Forest Council today. And so I'm going to provide just a really brief overview, and then I'll get into just a little bit of how the funding works before I kick it over to Ashley, who's going to dive into the nitty-gritty of program structure and outcomes and impacts and the amazing work that we've been doing alongside these young folks. So yeah, with that, let's go ahead and jump right in. So the Youth Forest Council is an immersive year-long paid internship that connects young people ages 16 to 20 in Austin to careers in natural resources and public service. Youth Forest Council members work alongside us and other urban forest program professionals to support a lot of different reforestation activities in the community, and then of course develop and deepen their own connection to Austin's natural spaces. They also function essentially as an advising body to the Urban Forest Program, and then they're ambassadors that work on behalf of the City of Austin. We prioritize youth voice and choice. And so I'll kind of point out some of the fantastic young people that we have in some of these photos. So these are former interns. On the left, we have June, who is learning how to do some tree climbing, which is always a fan favorite. And Ashley will get into a little bit more about that as we go on. So with that being said, one of the biggest questions that we often get is, how did this arise? This, wonderful program working with young folks in the field of arboriculture. And then where do you get the funding for it, right? Which I imagine is of interest for a lot of folks on the call. So without getting too deeply into it, I'll give you, again, just kind of a brief overview. So back in 2018, City of Austin had a really active council member who primarily wanted to prioritize youth outreach and advocacy. And so legislation was passed that essentially forced the hand of the Urban Forest Program to create this program and to allocate funding towards it. And then also to allocate funding towards the program coordinator position to then spearhead and lead the program. So the idea behind the program, again, being that it would fulfill or fill this kind of necessary gap by offering this year-long paid experience. Very important to highlight that paid experience when you're interested in bringing young people into workforce development. And then giving them that exposure that would hopefully have them feel a little bit more inspired to pursue careers in the outdoors, in nature, the environment, and then for our purposes, to retain that talent. We've talked a little bit, I heard from Keith and Emma, about building that pipeline, right, of youth then who are invested in careers in urban forestry. So we'll go ahead and then talk a little bit more about how does the money work? Because this is, again, one of the questions that we get the most, I would say. So essentially, the city of Austin has a tree preservation ordinance that requires developers to preserve trees on site when they are looking at doing development and construction, B, to replant trees that might be removed, right? And then lastly, when you are having to remove trees, they have to pay into the mitigation fund. And so essentially that goes into the Urban Forest Replenishment Fund, and it supports off-site tree planting and maintenance, promoting tree care and preservation, and then urban forest conservation. For us, that's really important because it's essentially how we fund all of the work that we do with regards to reforestation. So the program budget, right, for both this program and other educational and community outreach initiatives, certain salaries, and then of course how we pay the interns as well. So just a little look behind the veil, so to speak, on how we're able to fund those initiatives. From here, shifting gears into our team. So Ashley and I already introduced ourselves, so I won't get too deep into that, but I do want to highlight Brittany Quinn, who's this person highlighted in the center. So she is now in her first year as program development coordinator, and she is leading our cohort and spearheading all efforts involving YFC. Brittany came on board with us back in 2020 as a Youth Forest Council intern. And so she really highlights that successful pipeline, right, and retention of staff and talent in our group. And so we're just so thrilled to have her on board and as now a full-time permanent position with us. Also, side note, it's her birthday today. So, birthday vibes to a very special young woman. With that, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Ashley, who's going to get into a little deeper look at what the program structure looks like.
Thanks, Amelia, and thanks for that wonderful overview of YFC and how that money works. But yeah, like Amelia said, I'll talk a little bit more about program structure and what the interns do during their year with us. So we recruit, hire, and train 12 to 16 interns annually to join our urban forest team. So they are city employees. They can put on their resume as a City of Austin employee as a 6-year-old, which is pretty amazing. And we really focus our outreach and to young folks coming from disfavored communities with lower tree canopy in Austin. And the next slide will kind of show you what that our tree canopy looks like here in Austin. And so yeah, they're paid part-time, temporary employees, and really focusing, getting back on recruiting and how we recruit our students. We are hands-on, so we go into high schools. We usually partner with different programs in the high schools. For example, partnering with Austin Public Health, Go ATX Youth Truancy Prevention Program. So partnering with groups like this who are already in high schools, working with students, and going in and telling them about our opportunities here in Youth Forest Council. We also really focus on making our application kind of a low barrier. As they get the interns that do get hired, they do have to fill out a longer City of Austin application. But the best thing about that is once they're hired, we can all do that together, kind of going through all those data points. But really, we found it, just the application process to an internship, it's really helpful to make it a little barrier, easier for folks to apply, especially our young adults. Talking about incentives, how we recruit and then incentivize besides getting paid City of Austin wage, I think, which is now about $22. If I was 16 and making $22 would be amazing. But really really focusing on being a community. So working on we provide lunch and transportation that's needed for interns, and the ability to participate in other partner groups events and get paid to do that as well. So really just showcasing not only urban forest program, but other nature-based programs in the city that they can do. And really, we're bringing this back into equitable engagement, and to help our interns also understand why we focus our work in certain areas. We really work on basing our conversations and trainings on equity, and we really intentionally weave them into all our programmatic elements. So like through projects, through webinars, through like visiting leader sessions, interns learn a lot about the history of Austin and intersectional environmentalism and inequitable access to nature and green space. And it's like through these learnings and like through these programmatic elements, our interns feel more equipped to take action and consider the equitable outcomes in their work through their time in Youth Forest Council. And then we'll go to the next slide. So speaking a little bit more about participant demographics, doing that focused outreach on our left-hand side, that was our last cohort, and focusing in different communities. On the right-hand side, this is an image from our community tree priority map. So this is Austin, that little orange line down the middle, that's I-35, so showcasing tree canopy coverage in West and East Austin, focusing our outreach and recruitment on the east side of Austin to areas with lower tree canopy. So we were looking for our participants. We definitely focus our strength on that on the east side, and then just who will benefit from this professional experience the most, who has a curiosity for learning and have interest working in their community. But the community tree priority map is actually a really great tool, and a great thing to comment on, because it was a tool also helped developed by like the inaugural or the second Youth Forest Council. So using youth voice to develop this mapping tool for Austinites to use. And we'll go to the next slide. So yeah, so once hired to YFC, we like to call it for short, our interns participate in things like fieldwork excursions. We had a picture earlier of tree climbing. We have some more great tree climbing pics where interns can learn different climbing knots, right? How to throw a line, how to attach a climbing line, and eventually climb the tree using recreational harnesses, and just expanding their career options in climbing, because we all understand who works in the urban forest that, it's just not one career pathway. There's multiple career pathways in urban forestry that folks can take, and we like to show those in their internship. So we do like water quality testing and riparian forest, which gives that view about how water and trees interact in Austin, and also give our interns an opportunity to work with some of our nonprofit partners and learning what they're doing in our riparian zones in Austin. You can see a niche right here doing some water quality testing. We love going and kayaking and doing some trail repair. And go to the next slide. So our structure meeting and mentorships, interns meet monthly one-on-one with supervisor to discuss their goals for their time in the internship, because we want to hear from them. We want to hear what they want to get out of this year-long internship, not just the things that we're providing for them, but how we can help them grow and grow their portfolio or whatever they choose to do. If they want to do like chainsaw lessons, we'll find a partner group that's helping with that. If they want to climb more, if they want to learn more about biology, it's helpful for us how we design and structure our program. But mentorship also involving professionals who have been in the industry for years, getting to talk to our interns about their journeys. And in this picture we have on our left-hand bottom, it's Emily King, urban forester of the city of Austin, talking to some of our interns about the trees in that state park. Yeah, so pathways, right? So after a few years, YFC is still essentially kind of new, always changing to work with our youth. We put together the pathways after a few years of the program and observing some challenges with our interns involving like accountability and time management, 16 to 20. You're still learning those things. So we thought, what could we do to maximize the contribution, not to only their experience in the program, but to our urban forest program. And so we designed these pathways to give our interns some more structure and guidance through their year in the internship. So these pathways, there are 3 different pathways that they get involved with throughout the year. Provide hands-on experience in urban forestry through 3 different ways. We have community engagement, we have data collection actually on AISD schools. So getting our AISD Austin schools tree inventory counted, and environmental education. So going into different programs, schools, rec centers, nonprofits, and teaching urban forestry education and curriculum to our younger population. But yeah, they have the opportunity to really just like connect with people through nature. And I feel like the pathways are built to provide like valuable skills and communication and leadership within our interns, and to help them make a meaningful impact in their community. I'll go to the next slide. So our community action projects. So during the year, our interns who are just really excited and who show the most interest in showcasing, maturity and project management skills, and choose to do beyond the pathways that they're already on, a community action project, right? So our community action projects focus on promoting urban forestry in local communities in Austin. So that could be a number of different things, right? So this year we have some interns that we have an intern that's planning a 2-part tree series, a planting series, and then a follow-up tree care series at a local elementary school. We have an intern that's developing an online interface platform to give families access to urban forestry events and volunteer opportunities. And then another intern who is working in their school to design just a tree walk for their school with QR tree labels and information. So we have every year we have new community action projects designed, facilitated, and implemented by our interns. And here you can see a few pictures. On our left, we have Anish who built a little mini garden in urban forest in his school. We have on the right-hand side our intern Kane, who planted fruit trees at their high school. We have some education events on the bottom here too. And we'll go to the next slide. So some program impacts of last year. We had about 433 trees planted in local parks, greenways, and school campuses, engaged numerous members of the community, about 766, partnered with lots of different organizations, and spent about 159 hours performing like some sort of eco restoration, environmental education, or community service. And we'll go to the next slide. Yeah, and just to wrap everything up, a quote from one of our past Youth Forest Council members, seeing the visible change we're able to make by connecting communities and planting trees, it gave me a role where I felt encouraged and knowledgeable enough to teach others about something I dearly care about. So, getting get the ending quotes and the experience of our Youth Forest Council members, that's what keeps you going. That's what keeps the momentum because they're really taking this experience and moving on to like what's their next step, to whether it's in another nature-based career or always remembering the experience they had with Youth Forest Council. And with that, if anyone has any questions about Youth Forest Council, I know, just feel free to email myself or Amelia. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Amelia, Emma, and Keith. This is great. I mean, we had elementary, middle school, and high school. It was perfect to get the spectrum of students and their ages. As we move into Q&A here, please drop questions in the chat. If chat's not working for you for whatever reason, hopefully the Q&A feature works at the top. There's that button and you can submit a question. I see one already from Mohammed. And before I jump into that, I was going to ask just a few questions and then I'll kick it over to that question we already have to give people some time. And I wanted to start with you, Keith, because I think it could maybe especially help answer some of what Emma talked about, and Emma, you can chime in too. You both talked about working with the principal first, the captain of the ship, the head of the school, and getting their buy-on. And I'm curious about that because it makes total sense. We definitely see those top-down decisions, but I'm also curious about like having the program people. I always felt like having the person who's on the ground, might have a longer tenure than perhaps a principal might have, carrying over past principal changeovers. Maybe that's a good strategy. So I'm curious that maybe either have you seen one work? Keith, you've already said principal might be the top down works best, but what about what happens when the principal changes over? How do you like embed this into the school? And it could be kind of new for you both, but curious if you have feedback.
Yeah, so the one school I had that did achieve Tree Campus status, they had she was actually English as a second language teacher, but she had taken on herself to do gardening around the school and beautification. And so she was kind of my point of contact. So yeah, I did have a person on the ground who was going to do some work of maintaining these trees. But I guess my point was that ultimately it's not up to her, right? It's up to the principal. So she and I had to go in front of the principal and convince that person that this was a good idea. That program, basically she got transferred to a different school, and the principal also got transferred. They bounced around a lot, at least in my large district. The principals are like 2 years at a school and they get bounced. And that's pretty normal. So after she got transferred and my principal got transferred, the program collapsed, honestly, because there was no one. I lost both of my people. So, that does happen. And you just kind of have to take the roll with the punches. I mean, the trees are still there. It's just that the Tree Campus K through 12 status was lost, and I lost my laborers, right? So now I go visit those trees and mulch them and prune them, and I'm trying to get in with that new principal, but you know, they have different ideas. There's so much competition for time at these schools that um, it can be a pretty big pull to get someone to commit to something like this.
Mhm.
That's my experience. Maybe Emma wants to chime in.
Yeah, I would say the magic combo for us has been our sustainability supervisor, who is district level. So she's in the admin offices, a principal, and then the teacher. Like you need the trifecta, I think, for the lasting piece and for someone to get the ear of each of the really important pieces of a school district. So the teacher is that on the ground person who's going to make it happen, like they do with so many things, and make sure it continues. And a lot of the teachers, at least in the Boise school district here, are longtime science teachers that have picked it up, and they've been at that school for 10 years plus. The principals do bounce around a lot, but they are like the gatekeepers a little bit. So getting their yes kind of just lets everything happen. And then our sustainability supervisor, she's the one that is making sure the superintendent is hearing about this. The superintendent is seeing it in other places and our success stories. And that's really just continuing, like the funneling down is still happening because they're hearing the good, but the on the ground stuff comes from the teachers. So it's, if you can find 3 people like that, that's been a huge help for us.
Yeah, that's good feedback. Thanks, Emma. And we're approaching the top of the hour. I am going to drop the CEU link here in the chat here shortly, but we will stay on for a few minutes. So if you need to drop at the top of the hour, feel free, but we'll keep recording and ask a few more questions. I love seeing the questions come in because your public school campuses are a huge part of your private property urban forest. And we know we need to be, well, but it's also public. So, I mean, you get this opportunity of great space for more tree planting to grow your urban forest. So I think this is really awesome that we're hearing from these folks and seeing the questions come in. Ashley Barry from Louisville asks, what kind of transportation assistance are you providing for the interns? That's become a big barrier for their workforce program.
Yeah, transportation being a really large barrier for a lot of young folks to get to certain programs. So luckily for us, working in the city, we have access to different fleet opportunities, different vehicles. We do have a 6-person van that we use. But what's been really helpful for us is before every event or activity, we send out like an RSVP as like, do you need transportation to this event? And most of the time, our students say no. But for those who do say yes, we definitely work out. So like, we all live in different sections of Austin. So like I work in the South, like I live in the South and Amir lives in Central. So it depends. So wherever the event is, if one of us on our way to the event, we would just go pick up the intern, we'll pick up the interns that need that transportation there, using our own personal vehicles sometimes. But really it's that initial ask of like who needs transportation and then going back and really figuring out how we can get them there, which has been very helpful.
Thanks, Ashley. Again, the CEU is in the chat. So if you need CEUs, please fill that out. I'm also putting links to become a UCFS member if you're so inclined, and then a survey if you'd like to fill that out to hear more about your experience with this webinar. So Emma, I saw a question back to you. Let me get over there. Was about any pre-survey work done for the students. So you shared that you heard if they were interested after. Was there any a question like, did they had they already had a plan to have interest in urban forestry?
Yes, there was. And that was part of the university students' work. So we just grabbed the end results to share the good.
Did you see a change? Do you remember?
Yes, there was an increase. Yeah, she did a whole paper on it and everything. And we can, if anyone has any questions, you can reach out to me and I can share more about it. But there was an increase, and there were more questions also about just awareness and understanding the benefits of trees that we also saw increased. So it works.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
For Keith, this might be something to follow up with you afterwards because it's a pretty detailed question, but knowing the nitty-gritty things I know is so important to folks because it's great to see this, but like, how do you make it work? But this is the question about the irrigation system. It looks intricate. How did you work with facilities to design the nursery? Were there any hiccups with accessing the water lines?
Yeah, so facilities took a long time to build the nursery. And that's why those first seedlings we potted up were just sitting on the grass for months and being hand watered um, by facilities. Once they built the nursery itself, uh, there was no water to the nursery. And so they were still like hand watering with sprinklers or like a garden hose, a shower head. So it took a while. Finally, they did run a water line out there. And from there, once they gave us that frost-proof hydrant, that spigot, we were able to take over. My coworker, who's a agriculture extension agent with greenhouses and growing fruits and vegetables, has a lot of experience with irrigation. So he was able to design that board and everything on that board and help me install the irrigation. So I had expert assistance from someone who regularly installs drip irrigation for commercial horticulture and production. Yeah, working with facilities was tricky. You know, we proposed to contract these things out. They said, no, we don't want contractors on site. We'd rather do it ourselves. And then it basically took 6 months to build the nursery and another 6 months to get water. So yeah, it took a year.
Yep.
It was a long time.
Yeah,
So
I think that's good perspective, and I'm sure Amelia and Ashley, maybe, I'm not sure if you guys started the program, but know how long it takes to get to these things. And Emma too, like these little kernels of ideas start somewhere. And Emma, you had a great discussion about how you had that first meeting, just brainstorm and left with these shared goals and the patience it takes on these things. And that's okay. Like, it's really good to have this perspective from folks that it starts somewhere and all of a sudden you turn around and it's years later or a year later and you're like, wow, that actually happened from that single meeting at the start. So really great perspective. And if you haven't, again, I'm going to put another plug in for the conference, because not only are you with your tree nerds and your tree friends across the country and globe, but you're going to be having canopy conversations, a big chunk of time in the afternoon. And Emma's going to be leading one about engaging youth in tree plantings and tree work in our communities. And then we also have someone talking about how they started their nursery, someone from Missouri. Keith will be there as well. And so some of those like nitty gritty questions of like, tell me how you set up that irrigation system can get answered during that. And then of course, during breaks. So again, we're past the top of the hour, but we're staying on just a little bit longer here. And there is a question, Amelia and Ashley, that I think it might, Mohammed, we're going to have you follow up with Amelia and Ashley afterwards. We'll send emails because a pretty detailed question. Mohammed is working on his education in Europe and comparing Germany, Dresden, and Dallas and their tree planting programs. And he was asking about Youth Forest Council, how it complies with Austin's urban forest policy. So it's a little high level question. I think that's why we might need to dig into that a little bit more later. But maybe you have some thoughts on that. I'm not sure like how the city might have an urban forestry growth goal or the policy about how we're going to engage people in our community. Anything you might share about the connection with this specific program and how it connects with the goals overall for the city?
Yeah, I can touch a little bit on that, and then Ashley, feel free to jump in too. So yeah, as far as urban forest policy goes, we have an urban forest master plan, and then what we're looking to primarily right now within the city of Austin as a municipality is the climate equity plan. And so both of those plans have outlined strategies that want to highlight and prioritize young folks and also folks traditionally coming from disfavored communities and from low canopy areas. And so, we do place a lot of emphasis on incorporating those demographics into programming, into pouring staff time and resources into, both educating and hiring and training people from those backgrounds. With regards to canopy goals, we do have the goal of 50% by 2050. And so we're currently at, I think it's around 41, 42%. Ashley, does that sound right? And so, yeah, that's kind of really where community forestry comes into play, right? And especially looking at areas on the east side for us, which is our more heavily deforested region, where a lot of the population has been subjected to, redlining, historic inequities, things of that nature. And so, yeah, that's kind of a high level response to here's how we place staff time and resources into investing into these communities where there's been traditionally less tree canopy and where we want to be growing not only trees, right, and canopy percentages, but as we know, people power, right, into investing in these young leaders who will be the conservationists and urban foresters of the future. Feel free, Ashley, to jump in.
No, yeah, I can just can slightly just talk about just the origins of Youth Forest Council and how, they strategically worked on having Youth Forest Council closely aligned with Austin's strategic direction of 2023. The plan is being updated, but when it was originally focused. But in that strategic direction, Austin wanted really to have young people directly in decision making on programs that will directly affect them and their peers in the city of Austin. So they were encouraging civic participation, engagement in all stages of life in the strategic plan. And so Youth Forest Council programmatic goals really focused on this strategic direction in Austin in a lot of different areas like, health and environment, and economic opportunity and affordability. So things like that. That's how we kind of play into the larger scale of Austin.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so many nonprofits across the country have started a workforce engagement program, and it's easy, quote unquote. It's not easy, but easier for a nonprofit to do that than the city. And so how interesting that the city of Austin took that on and is paying them a really awesome wage for a young person to be receiving. And so much similar to what Keith and Emma are talking about, where it's got to start from the top. And if you get top buy-in from council, mayor, that can make our lives so much easier as we go forward. Well, let's wrap here. It's such great discussion. We're going to follow up with this recording and then email addresses for everybody if you would like to follow up. Hopefully you'll be at our conference and you can touch base. Everyone here on the call will be at the conference, not all the days, but hopefully if you had more questions, you can follow up with them there. So we'll wrap up for now. We hope to see you at our next learning series in December. You can find that on our website. And with that, we'll wrap up and we'll see you later. Thanks, everybody. Bye.